Have you ever felt the weight of a secret so heavy it could crush your soul? My name is Lucas, and I've carried that burden for as long as I can remember. Growing up in the shadowy alleys of Vila Madalena, I often found myself torn between the ordinary and the extraordinary, a world that danced on the edge of reality and the supernatural. It was here, surrounded by the vibrant yet eerie murals that adorned the walls, that I first realized the truth. The past is a relentless pursuer, and vengeance can take many forms. At first glance, my neighborhood seemed like any other in São Paulo, lively cafes, eclectic shops, and the faint sound of music wafting through the air. Yet, there was an undercurrent of unease that settled in my bones, a whispered warning that something was amiss. The cobblestones beneath my feet seemed to pulse with a life of their own, each step echoing tales of betrayal and loss that permeated the very air. I often found myself staring down the narrow streets, questioning what lay beyond the veil of night, a darkness that hinted at the supernatural lurking just out of sight. The first signs of conflict crept in silently, like shadows, stretching across twilight. It was the night of the festival, a time when laughter and joy should have filled the air. Instead, I sensed an unfamiliar chill that settled over the festivities. My childhood friend Clara had arrived late, her eyes haunted and distant as if she had seen something that shattered her spirit. When she spoke, her voice trembled, recounting a tale of a figure cloaked in darkness, watching from the edge of the gathering, its intentions unknown but palpably sinister. My heart raced. I knew this wasn't just the result of an overactive imagination. As the night unfolded, I felt the weight of my own past pressing down on me. 5 years ago, a tragedy had struck my family, a tragedy I had never fully understood. My mother, once vibrant and full of life, had fallen victim to a series of inexplicable events, her fate intertwined with forces I dared not name. I had buried my grief beneath layers of denial, but Clara's story unearthed the memories I had tried so hard to forget. The pain of her loss transformed into a deep-seated need for answers. And as I stood there, the flickering lanterns casting ghostly shadows on the cobblestones, I felt a stirring within me, a desire for revenge against the dark forces that had robbed me of my childhood. The atmosphere thickened, heavy with a sense of impending doom as whispers of ancient curses and supernatural disasters danced through the air. The trees swayed ominously, their branches clawing at the night sky, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the festival was merely a facade, a celebration masking a deeper, darker truth. Clara's fear became mine, intertwining our fates as we ventured deeper into the chaos that surrounded us. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As the festival swirled around me, the laughter and music faded into a distant hum, eclipsed by a rising tide of anxiety. I could feel the energy shift, a magnetic pull drawing me toward the shadows that lurked just beyond the lantern's glow. Clara's words echoed in my mind, a chilling reminder that something dark was watching us. I could no longer ignore the weight of my own secret, the truth I had buried deep within, a truth that was clawing its way back to the surface. "Lucas, we need to leave," Clara urged, her eyes darting nervously to the edge of the crowd. I can't shake the feeling that something is coming. I wanted to reassure her, to dismiss her fears as mere paranoia, but I felt it too, a presence that made the hairs on my neck stand on end. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, draped in a cloak that absorbed the faint light from the lanterns. My heart raced as I squinted, trying to discern any details, but the figure remained a mere silhouette, a harbinger of chaos. "Who is that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the music. "I don't know," Clara replied, her voice trembling. "But I think we should get out of here, now." Before I could respond, the cloaked figure stepped forward, revealing a face obscured beneath the hood. A pair of piercing eyes locked onto mine, sending a jolt of fear through my body. The figure raised a hand and the music abruptly ceased. The crowd fell silent, a collective gasp echoing through the air. I felt a rush of panic. Something was terribly wrong. "Lucas," Clara said urgently, grabbing my arm. "We have to find shelter." We pushed our way through the throngs of festival-goers, but the streets felt alive, shifting beneath our feet as we ran. It was as if the cobblestones themselves were conspiring against us, leading us deeper into the labyrinth of Vila Madalena. I was acutely aware of Clara's presence beside me, her fear mixing with my own, forming a bond that felt both comforting and suffocating. Just as we turned a corner, we stumbled upon a small, dimly lit bar, a refuge amidst the chaos. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and secrets. It was here that I met Raphael, the enigmatic bartender whose smile was both inviting and unsettling. He poured us 2 glasses of cachaça, his eyes glinting with an understanding that felt almost supernatural. "Looks like you two have seen a ghost," he remarked, leaning over the bar with a knowing grin. Or perhaps something far worse. Clara and I exchanged glances, unsure of how much to reveal. "There's someone at the festival," I managed to say, my voice steady but laced with urgency. "We need to know if you've heard anything." Raphael's demeanor shifted, the playful glint in his eyes replaced by a seriousness that sent a shiver down my spine. "You're not the first to feel it," he said quietly, glancing toward the door as if expecting someone to burst in. "Vila Madalena has its secrets, and some of them are best left buried. But if you're looking for answers, you might want to seek out Anna." "Anna?" Clara asked, confusion etched on her face. "An old woman, lives near the edge of the neighborhood," Raphael replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "She knows things about the darkness that hangs over this place." My heart raced at the mention of Anna. I had heard whispers about her, tales of a woman who dabbled in the arcane, rumored to possess knowledge that could unravel the very fabric of reality. The thought both terrified and intrigued me. "Why should we trust her?" Clara questioned, her skepticism rising. "Because," Raphael said, leaning closer, "sometimes the truth is the only weapon you have against the shadows." I felt the pull of destiny tightening around me, the weight of my past merging with the uncertainty of my future. The festival was no longer just a celebration. It had become a battleground, and I was poised at the center of it all. As I looked into Clara's eyes, I knew we had to confront whatever darkness awaited us. "Let's find Anna," I said, determination coursing through me. "It's time to uncover the truth." With that, we stepped out of the bar, the night air thick with anticipation and fear. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me, a hope that perhaps, just perhaps, I could reclaim what had been lost. As we stepped into the night, the vibrant hues of the festival faded behind us, replaced by the oppressive darkness that clung to the air. Clara walked slightly ahead, her shoulders tense as I matched my pace with her. The cobblestones felt uneven beneath my feet, and with each step, a heavy sense of dread settled deeper in my gut. "Are you sure about this?" Clara asked, glancing back at me. "I mean, what if Anna isn't what we expect?" I shrugged, trying to mask my own uncertainty. "We need answers. Whatever is happening at the festival, it's tied to my past. I can feel it." The words slipped from my lips, a confession I hadn't fully processed until now. I had always thought my childhood was behind me, buried beneath years of suppressing memory. Yet now it all felt dangerously close, like a ghost that refused to be exorcised. As we walked, flashes of my past invaded my thoughts. My mother's frantic warnings about dark forces, the way shadows would dance in the corners of my vision. and the whispers of a name I had tried to forget. Elias. He was a friend once, or maybe more. I had buried him alongside the memories of the strange rituals that had surrounded our friendship. The nights spent in the woods, the chanting, the sacrifices. I shivered, the weight of those memories threatening to crush me. Lucas? Clara's voice pulled me back to the present. Are you okay? Yeah, I lied, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. Just thinking. Thinking about what? She studied my face, her concern palpable. About what I left behind, I said, my voice barely a whisper. About Elias. At the mention of his name, a sudden chill swept through me, and I hesitated. Clara's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition crossing her features. Elias? The one who disappeared? I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. He was different. We were drawn into something we couldn't understand. I thought I could escape it, but it's like it's all coming back to haunt me. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from the direction of the festival, followed by screams that cut through the night like a knife. Clara and I exchanged horrified glances. We have to go back, she urged, but something in my gut told me that running wouldn't help anymore. We were already entangled in a web we couldn't escape. Look, I said, my voice steady. If Elias is involved in this, then I have to confront it. I can't keep running from my past. Before Clara could respond, the cloaked figure from earlier reappeared, emerging from the shadows in front of us. You're too late, it hissed, the voice low and echoing. The darkness has come for you both. A wave of panic washed over me, and I instinctively stepped back, drawing Clara with me. What do you want? I shouted, my voice breaking. The figure raised a hand, and I felt a rush of memories flood my mind. Visions of Elias, of laughter turned to screams, of a pact I had made without fully understanding the consequences. It was all coming together, the pieces of a puzzle I had thought long scattered. Your past is your future, Lucas, the figure said, its voice dripping with malice. And it wants you back. In that moment, I understood. The darkness wasn't just a force at the festival. It was within me, an inescapable part of my identity. My breath quickened as I realized that confronting Anna might not just reveal secrets about Vila Madalena, but about myself. Truths I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Clara, we need to go, I said urgently, my heart racing as I turned to run. But the figure laughed, a sound that echoed in my ears, promising that this was only the beginning of a much darker journey. I turned to Clara, her eyes wide with fear, but also determination. We can't let it get to us, I urged, my voice steady despite the terror clawing at my insides. We need to confront this head-on. Before she could respond, the cloaked figure stepped closer, its presence a suffocating weight in the air. You can't escape your fate, Lucas. The darkness will consume you, as it has consumed so many before. The words sent a shiver down my spine, and I felt the pulse of something deep within me, a connection to the darkness that I had tried so hard to ignore. Memories flooded my mind again, but this time, they weren't just memories. They were fragments of power, of something I could wield. I could feel the energy swirling, a tempest of emotions battling within me. Clara, I breathed. What if I can turn it against him? She opened her mouth to argue, but I was already moving, forcing myself to focus. I reached deep into the well of emotions that churned inside me, fear, anger, regret, and summoned them forth. The figure's laughter echoed, mocking my attempt, but I wouldn't back down. I had to do something, anything, to reclaim my agency. Enough! I shouted, raising my hands as if to push the figure away. A surge of energy shot through me, a wave of raw power that felt both foreign and familiar. The shadows around the figure began to writhe, as if responding to my call. "Foolish boy," it hissed, but the confidence in its voice wavered. "You think you can control it? You don't even understand what you're playing with?" "Maybe not," I said, my heart racing, "but I know what you are, and I won't let you take Clara or me." With every word, I felt the energy swell, the connection to the darkness becoming a conduit for my will. Suddenly, Clara stepped forward, her resolve igniting. "Lucas, you can't do this alone." She reached out, placing her hand on mine, and as our energies intertwined, I felt a surge of clarity. Her fear transformed into strength, a protective barrier that reinforced my own resolve. "Together," she said, her voice steady, "we can face it together." The figure recoiled, its confidence faltering. "You think you can stand against me? You are mere children." But as we stood united, I felt the power shift. The darkness that had haunted my past suddenly felt like a tool I could wield, a weapon against the very entity that sought to consume us. I focused on Elias, on the bond we shared, on the moments of joy twisted into nightmares. I wasn't just confronting the figure, I was reclaiming my past, my identity. With a roar, I unleashed the energy, sending a shockwave of light and shadow cascading toward the cloaked figure. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, the air crackling with tension. Then, in a blinding flash, everything erupted into chaos. I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet as the shadows began to retreat, drawn away from me like a tide. But just as I thought we were gaining the upper hand, the figure screeched in rage, its form shifting and distorting, revealing a face that was both familiar and horrifying. "Elias!" I gasped, the name slipping from my lips like a prayer. The darkness had taken him, twisted him into something unrecognizable. "No, you cannot escape me!" it howled, the voice now laced with both fury and desperation. The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just a fight against an entity. It was a fight for Elias's soul. "Clara!" I shouted, my heart racing. "We have to save him!" As we stood at the precipice of this confrontation, I knew the outcome depended on the choices we made in this moment. Would we be able to pull Elias back from the depths of darkness, or would we succumb to the very forces that had haunted my childhood? The air thickened with dread, but I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Together, we would face whatever came next. As the shockwave of energy surged toward the cloaked figure, I felt a visceral connection to everything around me, the air crackling with tension, Clara's warmth beside me, and the pulsing darkness that seemed to reach out with desperate fingers. When the light met the shadows, it erupted in a blinding cascade, illuminating the chaos of our surroundings. I squeezed Clara's hand, anchoring myself to her as I willed the energy to pierce through the veil of darkness. For a moment, the world stood still. Then, with a resounding clash, the shadows recoiled, and I saw the figure falter. It writhed and twisted, its form collapsing in on itself as a scream of rage echoed through the clearing. But amid the chaos, I caught sight of Elias's face, contorted. Yes, but still there, beneath layers of shadow. My heart ached with the weight of my memories of him, the brother I had lost to darkness long before this night. "Elias!" I shouted again, desperation clawing at my throat. I felt the energy pulsing through me, begging to be unleashed, to free him from this torment. Just as the figure seemed about to dissipate, it lunged forward, and I instinctively shielded Clara. With my body, the darkness colliding with my chest like a battering ram. Pain exploded through me, vivid and sharp, but I held on, drawing on our bond, on the love that refused to be snuffed out. When the light finally settled, I collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. The air felt heavy with residual energy, and I could barely focus on what had just transpired. Clara knelt beside me, her face pale but resolute. "Lucas, are you okay?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I think so, I stammered, my body racked with aches and a deep, gnawing fear. I looked up, still reeling, and saw the cloaked figure reduced to a mere shadow on the ground, the remnants of its power fading into the ether. But Elias, he was still trapped, the remnants of his essence flickering like a dying flame. Lucas. "Look!" Clara exclaimed, pointing. A soft glow emanated from the spot where the figure had fallen. It pulsed rhythmically, almost as if it were breathing. But as I stared at it, I felt a chill creep through me. This was not the end. It was merely a transition. "We did something," I whispered, barely believing it. "But we didn't save him." "Not yet," Clara replied, her eyes narrowing on the light. "I think we've opened a door, but we might need to go deeper to pull him back." As I struggled to my feet, I felt the weight of the encounter pressing on my shoulders. I had survived, but not without scars, both physical and emotional. The pain in my chest throbbed with every heartbeat, a grim reminder of the darkness I had faced. "Lucas, what if this darkness is just the beginning?" Clara asked, concern etching her features. I looked at her, and in that moment I knew we were bound together in this fight. Whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. Just then, a distant sound echoed through the trees, a low, mournful howl. My heart raced. "What was that?" I asked, scanning the darkness around us. Clara's brow furrowed. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound like it's done with us yet." I nodded, the reality settling in. The encounter had resolved the immediate threat, but new mysteries loomed just beyond the horizon. What other remnants of darkness remained? And what about Elias? As we stepped forward, the glow pulsed again, and I sensed a presence, hints of something watching us from the shadows. The air crackled with tension, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey had only just begun. "Stay close," I whispered to Clara, a newfound resolve settling in my chest. Together, we would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The glow pulsed again, and I felt its warmth wrap around me, luring me closer. It whispered promises of salvation, but a part of me recoiled, sensing the darkness still lurking in the shadows. "Lucas," Clara urged, her voice barely above a whisper, "we have to do something before it's too late." As I stepped forward, the howl returned, louder this time, reverberating through the trees. It was a sound that seemed to pierce the veil of my sanity, a chilling reminder that we were not alone. The shadows around us thickened, coiling like serpents ready to strike. I glanced at Clara, her face pale, eyes wide with fear, and I realized that whatever lay ahead would test us in ways we couldn't predict. "Do you feel that?" I asked, my voice trembling. The air had shifted, crackling with an unsettling energy. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but I pressed on, driven by the hope of saving Elias. As I reached for the light, I felt something cold wrap around my ankle, pulling me into the darkness. I looked down in horror, realizing that the shadows were alive, hungry. Clara screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the cacophony of howls that surrounded us. "Lucas!" she cried, but the darkness was relentless. It enveloped me, dragging me deeper into its suffocating embrace. I clawed at the air, desperate to escape, but it was too late. The shadows closed in, and in that moment, I understood the truth. The darkness was not just a force to be fought. It was a part of me now. I felt the cold tendrils seep into my very being, twisting my thoughts, corrupting my memories. The last thing I saw before I was consumed was Clara's terrified face, a reflection of my own horror. And then, silence. In the aftermath, the clearing lay still, the glow flickering like a dying star. Clara stood alone, the shadows retreating, but the weight of her loss pressing heavily on her heart. The darkness had claimed me, and now it waited, patient and hungry, for its next victim. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.